Newman also liked to cite America to explode the branch theory for the Catholicity of Anglicanism. Granting Anglicanism's secession from her parent Rome, Anglicanism could no more be thought a branch of the Catholic Church than America could be thought a branch of the United Kingdom. And finally, in that rollicking send-up of English bigotry, lectures on the present position of Catholics in England, Newman likened the vastness of America to the vastness of Catholicism, speaking of that contempt for the monastic that has held sway in England since at least Cromwell's visitations. Newman wrote, "It is familiar to an Englishman to wonder at and to pity the recluse and the devotee who surround themselves with a high enclosure and shut out what is on the other side of it. But was there ever such an instance of self-sufficient, dense, and ridiculous bigotry as that which rises up and walls in the minds of our fellow countrymen from all knowledge of one of the most remarkable phenomena which the history of the world has seen, this broad fact of Catholicism, as real as the continent of America, or the Milky Way, which Englishmen cannot deny, they will not entertain. They shut their eyes, they thrust their heads into the sand, and try to get rid of a great vision, a great reality, under the name Popery." Something of Newman's interest in Americans and their country may have come initially from his father, a banker in the city of London, who, as Newman's brother Frank attested, was an admirer of Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. Like his father, Newman, for all of his Englishness, saw the world in rather cosmopolitan terms, and his attitude to Americans, while not uncritical, was certainly never dismissive. The attitude of the Anglican churchman F.W. Hook, who was at Christ Church, was rather more typical. It is obvious that surrounded as the church there in the United States is by papists and fanatics, our grand hope under God must rest with a learned clergy. Certainly, the divinity of some of our transatlantic brethren and fathers even is somewhat crude. We could purchase a complete set of the fathers for, I should suppose, £350. Now, why should not some 200 or 300 of us subscribe this sum and present these books to the Episcopal College of New York? Why not indeed? Hook was an interesting fellow. He had supportive things to say about the Tract 90 when it was neither profitable nor popular. Hook is an instructive figure because as vicar of Leeds, he was presented with many of the same challenges that confronted Episcopal churchmen in America. Most pressingly, how to integrate the Anglican Church into the new industrialized city, and how to put Tractarian principles to work in the pastoral life of the church. Hook was successful in negotiating the first challenge. Although Leeds was a Methodist stronghold, he doubled the number of Anglican churches and significantly increased the number of Anglican schools. When it came to introducing Tractarian principles into his churches, however, he was less than successful. When Edward Pusey came to him with the idea of building St. Saviour's as a model Tractarian church that would operate as a kind of Tractarian seminary, Hook offered his strong support, though he soon regretted it. He was particularly aghast when troops of Roman converts issued from the church. When it came to integrating Tractarian principles into the American Episcopal Church, American clergymen encountered comparable problems. Apropos some of these, Newman wrote Hook in 1835, I feel quite what you say about the American Church. They have a great gift and do not know how to use it. Pusey tells me that there is a great fear of their splitting in two parties, or rather churches, on the point of baptismal regeneration. The Western, taking the ultra-Protestant view, the New York connection, the Catholic. Bishop Chase, now of Illinois, has lately been here. He was very unsatisfactory altogether. And Pusey says he is one of the ultra-Protestants. Bishop Chase will appear in the talk later on. Throughout the 1830s and 1840s, Newman would receive warm testimonials from Episcopal churchmen convinced that Tractarianism could help them strengthen the church in North America. One bishop wrote Newman, "The sound principles which your writings and those of your friends are disseminating in England are rapidly gaining ground in the United States. Many of my clergy who were rather low in their opinions on the sacraments and sacred character of the church are very much changed for the better." Prominent American churchmen also puffed Newman's parochial sermons, which had a huge readership in the United States. For close-pointed and uncompromising presentation of the truths and duties of the gospel, the Bishop of New York, Benjamin Onterdock, attested, "I know not their superiors." George Washington Duane, the Bishop of New Jersey, agreed, "While they are not above the level of the plainest readers, they will interest and satisfy the highest and most accomplished minds." In 1843, the writer of these brilliant sermons responded by sharing with his American admirer how little his productions were appreciated by the Anglican Church, especially one, as he said, about which there might be a difference of opinion. Of course, Newman was alluding to Tract 90, in which he argued that the 39 articles to which all Anglican clergymen were required to subscribe might be accepted by those who were otherwise Catholic in heart and doctrine. An argument which sharply delineated the battle lines between those who considered the Anglican Church Protestant and those who considered it Catholic. In seceding from the established church, Newman showed his English and indeed his American friends that as far as he was concerned, the Catholic claims of Anglicanism were unsustainable. If Tract 90 precipitated the crisis of Tractarianism in England, the ordination of an extraordinary young man named Arthur Carey precipitated it in America. Carey was born in London in 1822 and moved with his family to America in 1830. After a brilliant undergraduate career at Columbia College, he formed the Tractarian group at the General Theological Seminary, and in 1842 was ordained deacon. In 1843, before his ordination as an Episcopalian priest, he was questioned by Dr. Hugh Smith, who was not prepared for the answers he received to his routine questions. Carey blithely admitted that he was not prepared to pronounce the doctrine of transubstantiation an absurd or impossible doctrine. He did not object to the Romish doctrine of purgatory as defined by the Council of Trent. He was not prepared to consider the Church of Rome as no longer an integral or pure branch of the Church of Christ. And he believed that the Reformation was an unjustifiable act and followed by many grievous and lamentable results. After receiving these startling answers, Smith refused to sign the required testimonial. Questioned further, Carey serenely informed his inquisitors that if he was refused ordination from the Episcopal, he would apply to the Catholic Church. Despite the controversy caused by the inquest, which divided high and low churchmen in the Episcopal Church for a generation, Carey was eventually ordained and became assistant to Samuel Seabury, a rector of New York's Church of the Annunciation. To recuperate from overwork and poor health, Carey set sail for Cuba in 1844, but died en route. He was buried at sea on Good Friday. For Seabury, who was a real power in the high church, Episcopal Church at this time, he wrote a eulogy for Carey that went into many editions. It was a very popular piece. Anyway, for Seabury, Mr. Carey was, without exception, the ripest man of his age that I ever knew, and seldom have I conversed with one of any age whose conversation impressed me with a deeper sense, both intellectually and morally, of my own weakness. On the abstruse subjects of metaphysics, on the profound dogmas of theology, he discoursed with the wisdom of a sage, bringing up from the deep of thought and placing in a clear and intelligible light truths which the generality even of cultivated minds seldom approach without bewilderment or discuss without confusion, and this with the unconscious ease and simplicity of a child.